What's going on, folks? My name is Nathan. You are watching the Salty Productions YouTube channel. Today we're taking a look at the math behind Subjugate the Hobbits, which is a 7-mana blue sorcery that says gain control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less. This card came out in the Lord of the Rings set, and I just don't think this card got the attention that it truly deserves. I am super high on this card in Commander, and I would like to show you the math behind why that is. Before we get further into the video, I'd just like to ask if you enjoy this type of content, leave a like on the video and subscribe to see more awesome content from me. And unfortunately, because we have a lot to get through this week, no comment of the week this week. So, Subjugate the Hobbits will take control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less, and I wanted to measure exactly how many creatures will this actually get you at the start of turn 7. And I actually made a short about this. You can check that out if you want the summary within a minute or less, but we actually went over to MTG Mudsta and looked through this channel's 30 most recent videos and evaluated at the start of turn 7 how many creatures were available to be stolen using one player as the quote-unquote protagonist or caster of the spell. So MTG Mudsta, I think, is a good sample because this channel typically plays at an average power level that you might find within Commander, and I took the lower left perspective every single time as the quote-unquote protagonist, mostly just because the playmat is blue. What can I say? I'm a sucker for theme here, as you can see my Theros Island in the background. And I will also note that within this data set, none of the games recorded were CEDH, and I did not cherry pick any of the gameplays. Like I said, I just took the 30 most recent videos, and then at the start of turn 7, we froze the game and counted out how many creatures were available to be stolen. So let's get into the results, for which I need to hop over to Microsoft Excel, the greatest calculator to ever have been invented. This is the core data set, and all of our assumptions here are extrapolated off of this. So in column B, I have the name of the episode in case you guys want to back up or check my data collection method, the perspective of the individual that we measured by as the protagonist, the timestamp that the data was collected, and then this is our actual data collection column right here, the number of creatures that we would be able to steal off of a Subjugate the Hobbits cast. And if we jump to the results, on average, about 5.7 creatures are able to be stolen with Subjugate the Hobbits, with the median being 5. So let's be conservative and round down to 5. On average, you are able to steal 5 creatures with Subjugate the Hobbits, which is a mana value swing of up to 30 in your favor, because if we assume that, best case scenario, all of those creatures are worth 3 mana, you are both removing 15 mana off of your opponent's boards, 3 times 5, and then generating those for yourself for a total mana value swing of 30. Okay, so that gives us the baseline for what we're going to talk about next, and I'm going to slide over to our graph, and for that I need to reformat just a little bit because I see that my big fat face is taking up a lot of real estate here on the screen, so we're just going to, there we go, okay. Nothing but professionalism on this channel. All right, so this is the graph that pretty much lays it all out to bear. So here on the left again, we have the count of creatures that we're able to steal, and then we have the frequency, and that is plotted into a bar graph with our average represented with this orange line and the median represented with this green line. One thing I want to note that is somewhat strange is that we are missing a count of 4 here. So none of the games I watched ended up with 4 creatures being stolen. But if you do, so when you kind of work with these data sets, if you extrapolate and look at the overall pattern, if we were to hypothetically say that this data set were to expand to 100 or 1,000 games, you can sort of pick out the line or trend line here. And I think that our number 4 gameplay would probably be somewhere around here, and my trend line would probably look something like this, is what I would imagine. The 0 slot, I will say, would be Big Sag if we were to only have, 0 creatures on board at the start of turn 7 when we have this in our hand, because it would do absolutely nothing. And what I noticed is that in a lot of games, there would be a board wipe that would be cast around turn 5. And so this is generally representative of those games where there was a board wipe between turns 4 and 6, and people just haven't had the opportunity to rebuild with lower CMC creatures, or maybe they rebuilt with more expensive creatures. On the flip side, there is a lot of opportunity for this card to be absolutely nuts, because 2 games we were able to find where this casting would net us 16 creatures on our board. These are very token heavy games, lots of 1 and 0 mana creatures. I plotted a happiness score, so to speak, where we plotted essentially we would be happy if Subjugate the Hobbits was able to get us 5 or more creatures. So what I'm calculating here is just the percent of the time where the casting of the spell would make us extremely happy, and that turns out to be 53% because we were taking the total frequency of our count of 5 and above divided by the total, which is 30. Okay, so 53% of the time we are very, very happy to cast the spell. So there is, I will say, with this card, there is a large variability in number of creatures that this is able to steal. Some of the time you're going to be big sag, some of the time you're going to be super happy with how many creatures this can net you. But I think the average case, once again, is very solid because most of the time we are going to get between 5 and 6 creatures. So what I tend to think of Subjugate the Hobbits as is both a mass removal spell and an army in a can, something like an Avenger of Zendikar, where we theoretically want to cast Subjugate the Hobbits, and then we want to cast an overrun effect, something like a Creative Behemoth, immediately the turn after. So in the best case scenario, Subjugate the Hobbits is both an army in a can and a mass removal spell, but it can also still take care of those really important utility creatures off your opponent's boards that they absolutely need to stick around, particularly if you are in a token heavy meta or an aristocrats heavy meta. This card is exceptionally good because there's a lot of tiny utility creatures that are very important to steal from an aristocrats player, namely Viscera Seer, which is a free sack outlet, and any other sort of card that will trigger off of deaths, so like your Midnight Reapers or your Morbid Opportunists, things like that, that will draw cards off of all of these deaths. Aristocrats players tend to play with a lot of tokens that they can sack to get sacrifice effects, and also low to the ground creatures such as your Blood Artists, your Zulaport Cutthroats, things like that, that will actually be those cards that will kill you in the game. So I think that this card is just really solid tech. I'd recommend at least trying this in your next few Commander games to just at least try it out against your meta to see if it is good. With the frequency at which tokens are created in Commander and the tendency for wizards to print more busted creatures at the lower end of the mana curve, I can't help but think that Subjugate the Hobbits gets incredibly good over time, and even today I think it is an incredibly solid option. So that's my case for Subjugate the Hobbits. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree or disagree. Love to hear the discussion, and with that we will wrap up the video. So thank you all for watching, and hopefully we'll see you all in the next one. Like and subscribe.